another day to learn. Today we're going to be discussing the fourth estate in a democracy, but I can see that we have very few people in class, so I appreciate if everyone can from their party members to kindly join the call so continue with the class. So we'll be giving 3 minutes for that. After that, we're going to be starting the class properly. Thank you very much. Tito is already in class, so let's do that quickly. And all right, that's 3 minutes. We're going to be starting now. You can still tell your party members to join the call. And don't forget to drop your names and admission number, identification numbers in the comment section for attendance purpose. So I'm going to be taking the citation of our facilitator for today now. Let's listen attentively. Camry Apollo is a broadcast journalist who focuses on development journalism. He's also a communication strategist and media trainer. With a background in architecture, he believes his 1.5 decade-long experiences in the agro-commodities export market, mining sector, and finally information technology sector opened up life's diverse perspectives and prepared him for his true passion in life, journalism. Camry finds the inner workings of the human mind absolutely fascinating and says he possesses a more than casual but less than formal interest in psychology. He considers himself a patriot who takes time out to volunteer as a mentor for a National Youth Service Corps leadership program, an assignment that is very dear to his heart. In 2013, Cameron started out as an anchor on WEFM 106.3, a top radio station in Abuja. He was named head of programs and subsequently head of station, a position he held until he left the organization in 2021. Today, he is the head of news and general manager of Radio Now 95.3 FM, a Lagos-based media house that focuses on national development, social consciousness, and advocacy. His motto informs how he lives his life: live well, love well, and die well. Ladies and gentlemen, our facilitator for today, Camry Apollo. You have the floor, sir. Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Mariam. Right, management of the Electoral College and distinguished members of this class, Good evening to us all. I'm absolutely honored once again to be your facilitator for this topic, which I find totally riveting, the fourth estate in a democracy. I'll start off, first of all, by talking about the origins of that term, the fourth estate. And I'll do my best to talk to you about journalism, who a journalist is, and the rules that govern our craft. From there, we'll move on to the effects of the fourth estate or journalism on governance and agenda setting. Hopefully, by the end of the lecture, we'll wrap it up by talking about information management, which is key, especially if you look at the communications terrain today. It's not easy to tell what is real and what is not. I don't know about you, but as the head of news, my work has more than doubled trying to authenticate information, I'll be honest. All right, so let's just jump right in. That term, the fourth estate, what does it mean? Is it about a housing estates or this, that, the other? No, it's not. The term fourth estate actually refers to the power of news media. A couple of people in the past have been given credit for coming up with that term, that phrase, the fourth estate. The first one is a British parliamentarian, Edmund Burke. This was in the 18th century. And the second person that's been credited with coming up with that phrase is William Hazlitt in the 19th century. He's an English writer. Now, by virtue of the classes you've held so far in the Electoral College, you know that most democracies, constituted power is divided among three arms of government. That's the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature. Basic three arms of government. Now, these three arms of government, or three estates, if you will, are reflective of estates, that is arms, again, that existed way back in the UK. That's when it was a monarchy. The king held sway before a parliament opened up and everything. So these arms all have their specific functions, which they are meant to carry out in the best interests of the people. That's how governance works, at least governance in a democracy, yes? They're meant to carry out their functions in the best interests of the people. One arm is not more important than the others. Also, we know that the principle of separation of powers and the ability of the three arms to give themselves to the service of the people is absolutely crucial to any country's development. I'm sure you've garnered this again from your courses so far. Now, this being the case, how did the Brits come up with a fourth arm of government or a fourth estate? Now, many people, again, there are two people that have been credited with coming up with that phrase, but I believe that out of the two that have been credited rather with coming up with that phrase, the fourth estate of the realm, the version that concerns Edmund Burke speaks to me more. Now, in the 19th century, the British historian and writer Thomas Carlyle, he credited Burke, who was a member of the British Parliament. He credited Burke with a statement saying that the reporters' gallery, which observes parliamentary proceedings, was more powerful than the three estates in the land at that time. Now, the reporters' gallery is, an elevated dais that encircles parliaments from which people look down and observe and follow the proceedings of parliament. We have a similar thing in our National Assembly as well. So he says the gallery, that dais that looks down on what's going on in parliament, was more powerful than all the three estates in the realm. Now, at that time, the three estates were the king, that represents the monarchy, which was the British crown, the clergy, and the commoners. So the word commoners refers to the House of Commons. You know, the British Parliament, there are two houses. There's a House of Lords, and then there's a House of Commons. One is by elections. You are elected into the House of Commons, and then the House of Lords. These are peerages given by the crown. So they're seats that are given. Interesting to note at this point, let me just make this quick aside. It's interesting to note at this point that the British Parliament, especially the House of Lords, they have given, I think it's about 23 to 25 seats to the clergy. So they've got the clergy, that's the church, represented in Parliament that participates actively in, legislation and the business of Parliament, if you will. I thought I should just mention that because I've heard people say quite often that religion is a personal thing, has no business in governance. Well, I think people ought to design a system of governance that is best suited to who they are. But that's just me. What do I know? So, again, back to the House of Parliament and the observations of Mr. Burke. His observation, again, was hinged on the influence that the reporters had over the people by virtue of the duty that reporters have to inform the people of what was debated, what was discussed on the floor of the House. The people only know what they are told by the press, because the people are not physically present when matters of state are deliberated. It's not always open. You don't always see people sauntering into Parliament. So when we refer to the people, we're speaking in generality of the greater populace, not just the few that would make it their business to go and find out what's going on in Parliament and want to follow proceedings. That's the ones that are open. We know that some conversations are closed door, closed sessions for all sorts of reasons. Nations have been known to have their secrets to protect themselves, we like to believe. Beg your pardon. So people, again, only know what's going on in Parliament when reporters report back to the people. Now, since then, the fourth estate has grown in its role of probing and questioning the activities of the three arms of government. By so doing, it holds government accountable to the people. Back home here in Nigeria, our laws through the 1999 Constitution as amended gives life to our press and media in Chapter 2, Section 22, which states, and I quote, the press, radio, television, and other agencies of the mass media shall, at all times, be free to uphold the fundamental objectives contained in this chapter and uphold the responsibility and accountability of the government to the people, end quote. So that's the part of our constitution that gives life to our press. News media, again, you'll notice during my interaction with you, I try to choose my words carefully as an information manager, because communication is a very, very tricky thing. A lot could be read into words. We'll come into that during our Q&A session, our interactive session. But news media, and I use that deliberately, news media has been called the guardian of democracy and the defender of public interest. It's very important that we make that distinction between news media and social media. And social media, you see quite a lot of, citizen reported. I'll come into that again as we go along. All right, so it's important we differentiate between news media and social media. In very basic terms, news media is called the fourth estate because it reports stories and news that's generated by journalists. That's people who work in news agencies, newspapers, magazines, news channels, freelancers, and so on. While social media comprises news that's generated by pretty much anyone who can create and share content. Today, every smartphone owner can be a reporter. You own a smartphone, you can go and you can report on anything. That makes you a reporter. Okay, so anyone with a smartphone can be a reporter, but not necessarily a journalist. Not necessarily a journalist. Again, I'll come to that in a bit. Professional ethics, fact-checking, editorial judgment. These are some of the things that distinguish journalism from mere content creation. Okay, it's very important we make that differentiation. The key difference here is that news media, again, as I said, is made up of journalists. And that brings us to another question. Who is a journalist? Might sound like a simple question. Basically, we understand that the journalist is someone who investigates, collects, and presents information as a news story. In my industry, broadcasting, Moriam reading out my citation there says, look, I'm the head of news as well as the general manager of a talk radio station. Talk radio means I'm in radio. Radio is in the broadcast industry. You've got radio and television. So in my industry, that's broadcasting. There are many people who are not journalists. I myself, I started out as a presenter, but today I'm a journalist because I was pushed. I was driven to do more. I got drawn into this thing, this business of media. I wanted to drill down and do more. So starting as a presenter, again, I had to go and acquire the necessary skills to pursue my passion of getting to the root of things, of journalism. I had to go and acquire that skill so that I could be better at what I had a huge passion for and also report the same to the people. So again, some presenters in my industry, broadcast industry, may call themselves broadcasters, but that doesn't automatically make them journalists. Talking about something doesn't make you a journalist. You can, be a commentator about this, that, the other. That's all well and good. Journalism is a very, very specific thing. Now, journalists, like the general public, we have the right to free speech. It's one of the founding principles of the press. It's very, very important. But here's the thing. With this right also comes a huge responsibility, absolutely huge, which is closely regulated. You can look at, organizations like the National Press Council, the National Broadcasting Commission, and so on. They basically regulate Nigeria's press. Now, some of you who are close on following news and current affairs, if you cast your minds back to April 2023, at that time, the Nigerian Press Organization, which is made up of the Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria, that's NPAN, the Nigeria Guild of Editors, and the Nigeria Union of Journalists, they came together and they formed a 9-man board and established what is today known as the National Media Complaints Commission. They came up with this commission so that that commission can regulate the industry. The commission waded into the matter between one of our national dailies and the federal government not too long ago. Now, that media house had reported that the Samoa Agreement, some of you remember the Samoa Agreement, which Nigeria signed on the 28th of June in 2024 at the Organization of Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific States in Belgium. Some people say that media house basically reported that that Samoa Agreement was signed by Nigeria and it is being used to promote LGBTQ. That's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual, queer in the country. Now, this was not factual. It wasn't factual, and it saw the commission, right? The Media Regulatory Commission. It saw the commission direct that media house, publish an apology for the inaccurate and what the government considered to be an inciting report. Also interesting to note, at that time, and still currently, the person who drove the complaints to the Media Commission on behalf of the government is the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris. He is a public relations expert. He's also a publisher. He owns media organizations himself. So he was the one that took this complaint to the Media Complaints Commission and said, look, one of these newspapers has published this article, and this is the agenda they're driving. It is inaccurate. We don't want to start sanctioning and doing all these other things. So handle it, please. And the commission looked into the matter, and they ended up telling the media house that, look, your information is not accurate. You need to apologize, publish the apology. And it went on. So basically, this is one of the ways in which the broadcast industry is regulated. Okay, so yes, the press is founded on free speech, but with that comes a huge responsibility, and we need to regulate ourselves. So this is one of the ways in which we regulate ourselves. As time goes on, we'll assess our capacity to self-regulate. This is just one instance I've brought to the table. As time goes on, we'll see how well the Media Complaints Commission does in handling some of these matters, because it's very, very important, okay? So that's news media. Let's come to social media. Social media, on the other hand, is not regulated by the same laws which regulate journalism. Social media has its own regulator, and that is civil law. In April this year, the Sultan of Sokoto, His Eminence Saad Abubakar III, he said that social media is a terrorist, these are his words, a terrorist organization that must be dealt with. He said security agencies must deal with it. That is the Sultan of Sokoto, His Eminence Saad Abubakar III. So he says social media is a terrorist organization which the government needs to look into and deal with. Now, even more recently, this is just a few days ago, last week it was, while he was speaking at the General Assembly of, I think it's the Northern Traditional Rulers Council, he also called on the federal government to introduce regulations for social media use. Now, this is not the first time we're hearing about calls for regulation of social media. It goes back about 10 odd years thereabouts, yes? So the most recent one is just the call being made by His Eminence the Sultan of Sokoto. So I thought to just drop it here so that we can ponder on that for a moment. Now, his reasons, he says, are that the unchecked spread of false information poses what he calls a grave danger to national peace and stability. I leave you to be the judge of that. But let's come back to journalism and the fourth estate. Now, sorry, before I move back to journalism, regarding social media, again, despite the calls for regulating it and so on and so forth, it's regulated by civil law. So if I publish something that is untrue and is injurious to any particular organization or particular party, you can take me to court, and the court will hear the case and decide accordingly. So that, in my opinion, is a sort of regulator for social media. The big question before we leave this segment is that enough? And at what cost are we regulating social media using civil law? Okay, so think about that for a second. We'll come back to the laws in a second. So back to journalism and the fourth estate. Now, as a regulated industry, it's governed by certain principles. And I believe the 5 principles I will now go on to list pretty much cover it all for me. Depending on where you did your schooling, where you get your guidance from, that 5 could be extended to 7, maybe even 10 principles. I like to compact it into 5, which is all-encompassing, and it seems to work well for me so far. So the 5 core principles that govern the fourth estate of the realm. I rely on the work from the Ethical Journalism Network, these 5 principles. The first one is truth and accuracy. Now, journalists cannot always guarantee truth. Let's be honest. Truth is relative, yes? One man's truth is another man's fiction. So we can't always guarantee truth. But getting the facts right is the cardinal principle of our job. It must be based on facts. Journalists should always strive for accuracy. We must always give relevant facts that we have and ensure that these facts have been checked. Context is also important when you're talking about truth and accuracy and facts. And in the events where we cannot corroborate information, we must say so. We can't just pass it off. Because by passing it off, I'm saying basically I agree with this information I am publishing, this information I am broadcasting. So corroboration is very, very important. Accuracy, accuracy, accuracy. I cannot emphasize this enough. The second principle to govern our profession is independence. Journalists must be independent voices. We should not act formally or informally on behalf of special interests, be they political, corporate, or cultural. We must always declare, especially in places where we have editors or we have following, we must always declare, any of our political affiliations, if we have any financial arrangements or personal information that may constitute a conflict of interest. Say, for example, a organization approaches my organization and says, look, there's quite a lot of work we are doing, but we don't know how to publish this work or how to let the people know what is going on. And let us say this organization is a government agency. Now, we are not a public relations firm. We're media, we're journalists. We will look into what the agency has been doing. We will ascertain the accuracy of their information. And again, part of our job is to inform the public. We will then go ahead to inform the public of what is being done, and we will let the public know that this information we are putting out is at the behest of this organization. How do we do that? We would say, well, this information is sponsored by, and then we put the agency. So again, before going ahead to publish or to broadcast, we will go and verify what's being done. This thing, is it accurate? Do people really need to know this? Where does it sit in our order of priorities? And then we can go ahead. So by doing so, we can avail them of our skill of informing and educating the people without necessarily selling the government, because we would have to declare this information being put out is being sponsored by this, that, the other. Another instance I can give you of independence of journalism is a case came up. This was in 2024. Case came, 2022, 2023, before the 2023 general elections, concerning the central bank and former embattled central bank governor, Mr. Emefiele. He was arrested and some of his associates were picked up as well. when one of his associates was picked up, I believe he's a religious leader of a sociocultural group here in Lagos. He was picked up. I went to school with this person. He's a friend of mine. So when this matter came up in our daily editorial, this is where we discuss the stories we will treat for the day, how we intend to treat them, who best to tell, this, that, the other. It's where we do our planning. When that story came up, I recused myself, as did my managing director, because she knows the person very, very well, better than I do, in fact. And we recused ourselves because we don't want any form of bias to come into the way the story will be treated by our company. So the producers and presenters got together, they had their conversation devoid of any sort of influence from myself and the managing director. So we're able to extricate bias from that matter. They went ahead, had the necessary conversations and treated it. So again, we did this in order to preserve the independence of our voice. I don't know if any of the team knew about my relationship with this person prior to the conversation. Same thing with the MD, but we did both announce it on the table saying, look, she said, look, this person is well known to me. I'm going to recuse myself. So you people, you know what to do. Go ahead and give it your best. I followed suit. So independence is very, very important. Another principle that governs our profession is fairness and impartiality. It's a very strong principle which we uphold in our organization, fairness and impartiality. Most stories have at least two sides. Now, while there's no obligation to present every side in every piece or story, while there's no obligation to do that, the stories must be balanced and they must have context. They must have context. Having said that, sometimes it is a bit challenging to remain objective when you're telling a story. Say, for example, I'm going to use the situation in the Middle East. That's the situation in the Gaza Strip. Now, in Gaza, we see there's a ceasefire in place. Prior to that, reports coming out, which was too far and few in between, in my humble opinion, reports coming out of Gaza were not as much as we would have liked it. I'm part of a coalition of African journalists against genocide. We all came together, African journalists, to speak out with one voice against the killing of journalists in Gaza. We are all aware that the Israeli government, in pursuing its campaign in Gaza, literally frowned on the press coming into that space. As a result of that, just under 200 journalists have been killed over the last 2 years. It's a number that's far too high. So again, the reports coming out of Gaza showed that women and children were being killed as well. They were dying as a result of malnutrition, bombing, and so on and so forth. It's difficult to be objective when you hear about women and children being killed, non-combatants in a conflict. The state of Israel went to war against Hamas, and the collateral damage was a price that is far too high for me as a news editor to stomach. So being objective was a difficult one for me. How did I navigate this terrain? I did so. When I say I'm speaking about my media organization, which also includes my managing editor, who is my managing director. We decided, look, we need to keep the reporting coming out of Gaza on the front burner because it was, number one, underreported. Then we noticed there was a Western slant towards the reporting, which was not fair. It wasn't fair at all. The conflict wasn't being reported. First of all, I stopped calling it a war. We stopped calling it a war because a war is where you see two armies come out and go against each other. But after the activities of October 7th, what the world saw was the Israeli military move into Gaza and they pounded and pounded and pounded that region. So I call it what it is, Israel's assault on Gaza. The reasons as to the why, this, that, the other, I leave that to you to discern. You know, I'm not going to get into that conversation because it's an emotional one. It's very historical as well. But to report on what's going on, what we saw going on, were children and women were dying. These are not Hamas, and it's difficult to be objective in a situation like that. So we did our best to report this conflict, as the world called it. We called it a pounding, an attack, and an assault, sustained assault, as fairly as possible. And as we did that, we also, again, remember our fallen comrades, people who risked their lives and paid the ultimate price, simply trying to get out information from that space. It's a difficult one. It still continues to be a difficult one. Again, let's not make the conversation about that particular convict. I'm using it as an example to show you fairness and impartiality when it comes to reporting. Sometimes it is challenging. The Global Summit Flotilla, this is the flotilla of over 50 ships of people from about 45 countries that sailed towards Gaza, carrying humanitarian aid and foods, trying to break the blockades that the Israeli government has placed on Gaza, preventing aid and whatever from coming into Gaza. This ship sailed. It was underreported. By being fair, we insisted. So we tracked it daily. We reported on it daily because, again, this is something that is significant. You've got people who literally have no political skin in that game making a bold statement saying, no, there are people down there. We're going to take aids to them. They're innocents there. We can't, tolerate this. You can't lock out an entire range of people. So this thing was underreported by the Western press, by a lot of press, but we decided we will report on it. So again, this is about fairness and impartiality. We need to tell both sides. Another principle that governs our profession is humanity. Journalists should do no harm. What we publish or broadcast may be hurtful, and we also need to be aware of the impact that our words and images have on the lives of others. When you publish, when you broadcast, the information we push out there, it affects people in any number of ways. We need to be aware of it. On occasion, the National Broadcasting Commission has actually cautioned media houses over the coverage and reporting of terrorism. This is especially over the last 8 years. At the height of the Boko Haram attacks in 2014 and 2015, the NBC, again, cautioned broadcasters to avoid what they called airing unverified casualty figures or gory images, because they said this could undermine national security or the morale of security agencies. In July 2022, the NBC also warned stations against what it described as glamorizing the activities of terrorists, bandits, and kidnappers. The commission says that this violated the provisions of the broadcast codes and that broadcasters must avoid details that might cause panic or further the objectives of the terrorists. NBC, again, usually hinges this type of warning on section 5.4.1. If you've got a copy of the codes, you can refer to it. If you don't, I urge you, please download a copy. If you aspire to play in the political space, then you need to be armed with information and rules and regulations. So please go and download a copy of the National Broadcasting codes, the NBC codes. I believe we're still operating the 6th edition as amended. Work is being done to update it, but right now it's a 6th edition. Download it, familiarize yourself with what the code says about broadcasting, okay? So again, concerns have been raised that the NBC's actions in this regard, that's cautioning and so on. Some people have said that this action amounts to a form of press censorship. I'll leave that to you to debate and draw your conclusions. But again, remember that journalists should do no harm. Before we move off to the next part, I'll give you another short example. There was a report I came across. The reporter, there were actually two of them, the reporters were, they published a report about some violence. This went back to, I think, 2002, 2003, the Kaduna government, or Kaduna state riots or thereabouts. So the reporting was so graphic in its description, the use of knives, pregnant women, fetuses, and so on. It was very, very descriptive. So, you need to ask yourself the question, what is the aim of somebody who is reporting when they go to that graphic extent? It's one thing to say pregnant women were killed. It's another thing to describe how a pregnant woman was killed. Both reports will tell you a pregnant woman was killed, but one goes a step further, and in my humble opinion, it incites an emotional response. So you must question the aim of the reporting. Is that reporting, does that reporting do harm? Or does it not do harm? It's a simple thing. I live my life, and I also have this conversation a lot of times with journalists, especially young ones coming up. I live my life according to certain principles, and that is that each and every one of us is inherently born with the knowledge of what is right and wrong. Sometimes you don't need to tell a person what is good and bad or what is right and wrong. We are inherently born with this knowledge. Okay, so I'll leave that to you to discern whether sometimes the MDC is practicing press censorship, yay or nay. And I think it's going to be on an instance by instance basis. I don't think it could be a blanket answer of yes or no. The fifth principle that governs our profession is accountability. Now, a sure sign of professionalism and responsible journalism is our ability to hold ourselves accountable. For example, if we make mistakes, which we do, we're human, when we commit errors, we must correct our errors. And our expression of regret when we're correcting our errors need to be commensurate to the passion and emotion and the time you give when you are committing the error. So if I go and put out some misinformation, let's say about the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, let's take, for example, Mr. Nyesom Wiki, and I go and say something that he did not do, and I'm corrected. If I kept on hammering on this, can you imagine this is what the minister did? Why would a minister do this, that, the other? The minister has no place doing this, that, the other. Why would they do this? It's wrong for the minister to, and I go on and on and on and on and on about this bit of information that is not factual. When it comes time to correct, it's not just enough for me to come out and say, well, the information I put out yesterday about the minister, I do apologize, was incorrect. This is the correct information. No, it's not enough to do that. Because I passionately went down this road of misinformation and need to apply the same amount of effort in the correction. So beyond saying I apologize, I also need to draw out things like, the importance of checking, of making sure what we put out is right. This is how I show contrition. This is how I try to redeem my professional image and save the name of my media house or my publication. This is how it works. It's not a business that has space for egos. If you've got an ego, please go and do something else. Okay, it's not about your ego. So again, the accountability is very, very important. Facts, accuracy, very important. So those principles for me, those five: accountability, humanity, fairness and impartiality, independence, truth and accuracy, these five sort of cover the practice of journalism for me. Everything else you can find within these five major areas, in my humble opinion. All right, so with that, I end the first part of our interaction today. We will move now into the second part, which is the interactive part. This is a very important part because in this section, we will talk about the effects of the fourth estate of the realm on governance. What effects does my constituency have on governance? Nigeria is a very good example of how influential the fourth estate is in the lives of the people. For those of us who travel around a lot, if you travel the length and breadth of the country, you will see places where magazines and newspapers are sold, these newspaper vendors. You see people huddling around some of these newspaper stands, and you'll find them engaged in keen conversation, if you will. Keen conversation, very, very heated debates they have sometimes. These debates derive from their diverse interpretations of what they read on the pages of newspapers or the dailies or magazines. That's the information they debate and interact on. For many of them, this is the only source of information on governance in the land. Not everybody has an Android phone, mind you. Okay, so let's not take it for granted. For many of them, this is the only source of information they have. So it goes without saying that the responsibility on the shoulders of journalism, not just here in Nigeria, but around the world, that responsibility is massive. It's massive. Reality is this: if we write it, they will read it. If we say it, they will believe it. These are the two phrases, I believe, which serve to remind us that we, in news media, we have the power to shape public opinion and agenda as well. So let's move now to the interactive section. One of the important effects of the fourth estate of the realm on governance is our ability to determine public focus, our ability to set agenda. I'm going to dwell on this a while. So, Mariam, please, I'll call on you to serve as moderator for the conversation. I will pose questions, and those wishing to answer the question should indicate by raising their hands, and then Mariam will give you a chance to speak. Please let us keep our responses shorter than 30 to 45 seconds, okay? So that we can get as many views as possible. So my first question is this. What is the current focus of political conversation in Nigeria? What is the current focus of political conversation in Nigeria? Anyone with an answer, raise your hand, and Mariam will give you the floor to speak. Please, let's remember, keep it short. 30 seconds, 45 seconds should do it, okay?
All right. Sylvester, I've asked you to unmute.
Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Sylvester. Thank you. Go ahead.
Sir, my name is Sylvester from APC. Sir, currently the focus of the political discussion is on the 2027 upcoming election. So that's where all the focus is now. Thank you.
Okay. All right. When I say political conversation, I also include things like matters of governance. Okay. So let's not think it's political regarding politics alone. Literally, politics is present in quite a lot we do. Let's not forget. All right. Next person. Regarding government. Yeah.
Kunle Lawal, I've asked you to unmute.
My executive director, sir.
No, it's actually a student.
Oh,
Very
right.
name of the...
No, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, please. Colonel Lawal, your internet is not good. Or Mariam, is it me?
All right, thank you, sir, for current political conversation.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it should be mine. Is it better now?
Yes, it is. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, sir. I think the current political conversation is around managing of security informations, especially relating to terrorism, the military, combating them and all of that. And I will also support with the first speaker, which is 2027 elections. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colonel Lawal. All right, we'll take maybe 3 more.
All right. Manessa, I'm sorry if I butchered your name. I've asked you to unmute.
Manasseh.
It's all right. Yes, sir.
Manasseh, thank you.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Manasseh.
I will make it very short and straightforward. The discussion around politics around these days is the sacking of chiefs of staffs and then giving their junior the higher ranking. What are they going to do with the middle ones who are within that rank? Massive retirement or what? That's what is on the burner. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Manasseh.
All right. Utibe Abbas, I've asked you to unmute.
Okay. Good evening, sir. Please, am I audible?
Okay, Utibe Abbasi, go on. Yes, you are.
Yeah. Good evening, sir. So, I would say the current political conversation is about the joint meeting of the Federal House of Reps and Senate members that held, I think either yesterday or day before yesterday in Lagos, where they agreed to add 1 state each from each political zone, like 1 state from each of the political zone. That's boiling down to the bill that was presented on the House of Rep for the creation of more states in Nigeria.
Thank you very much for
Thank
that.
you.
All right.
Right, we'll take 1 more.
Olushola, I've asked you to unmute.
Olusegun.
Yeah,
Good evening,
my name is
Olusegun.
Olushola Ojodevu.
Olushola.
Ojodevu. I represent NMPP. 3 political discourse. One is the narrative that is in the media that there is a massive Christian massacre happening in Nigeria. Secondly, is the new political chiefs and the service chiefs that has been removed due to an ongoing report that there is a coup that was aborted. And again, the National Assembly agreement on creating new states. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Olushola. All right, let's take 1 more.
All right. Roslyn, I've asked you to unmute.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Good evening, Rosalind.
Okay, I don't know if I'm audible enough.
Yes, you are. Go ahead.
Okay. Some key focus at the moment is on the case of the service chief, creation of states, and also including women and youths in politics. That's the reserved seats for women and also participation of youth.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Rosalind. All right. There'll still be a chance for some of you to contribute because I have a few more questions. But moving on. So far, what we have are creation of states, sacking of the service chiefs. Somebody even asked what happens to their superiors. Is it going to be mass retirements? Also, 2027 politics in 2027 has also been raised, and Christian genocide has been raised. The report about a genocide against Christians in Nigeria. So, again, the reason we're having this conversation is so that we can determine the fourth estate of the realm's ability to determine public focus and agenda setting. So, all these things are important matters. Yes, that's why they're all in the news. Which ones constitute an existential threat to Nigeria? Which ones? Which two? Let's stick to two because we have a range. Which two constitute immediate existential threats to Nigeria? They are all very important. Down the line, one could argue they all constitute existential threats. But I'm talking about the immediacy, the urgency of now. Which ones do constitute an existential threat to the country? Anyone?
All right. Victoria, I've asked you to unmute.
Good evening, everyone. The Christian massacre.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Victoria. Anyone else? We're talking about the urgency of now. Again, these are all important matters. We're talking about matters of state here. Talking about the urgency of now. Go on. Israel.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I think the two matters that are of urgency is the coup, the planned coup, and the retirement of, the promotion of the military service chiefs, and also the coup, the genocide. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll take a couple more.
All right. Manasseh, last your mute.
I think the removal of the service chiefs and the junior ranking officer becoming the service chief with the genocide. These are the two. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. One more. A female, preferably, please.
Oluwadamilare, I've asked you to unmute.
Hello, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, please. Sorry, I know you were expecting a female, but I'll just go ahead. It's the coup and the genocide of Christians, mostly in the northern area. I do believe that some of the other issues are ripple effects that come from these major two. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so we've narrowed it down to the reports of genocide against Christians and the coup. Interesting. All right, so there are issues at stake. Is the fourth estate fulfilling its role of informing, keeping people informed, educating people on these two matters? In your opinion, is the fourth estate, is news media fulfilling its role of educating you as well as keeping you informed on these two matters? I just want to hear across the board randomly, yes, no, what do you think?
All right. Bello Adamu.
Yeah, yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon, sir.
Good
Or
afternoon,
evening.
Bello Adamu. Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the political discourse I would like to talk about is the issue of the review of the date for 2027 election to 2026, where the National Assembly are proposing for a day election, and it should be done on November 26th, on November 2026, and then the court judiciary proceedings and other things will should elapse before the inauguration and swearing in of the newly elected executive. That is 20, May 29 May 2027. I think that is one of the political discourse now. Thank you, sir.
All right, Bello, before you go, Bello,
yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Do you think the media is given enough attention to this conversation? Because again, we're talking about changing the rules of choosing our country's national leadership. Do you think the fourth estate, news media, is giving you enough information about this matter? Are we talking about it enough, do you think?
Sir. Yes, sir. The media actually are trying their best to see that people get informed about the review of this constitution and the date for the election. I think the media are trying their best to see that the public have enough knowledge about what is happening and how to go about it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Bello. Okay, we'll go to the next person, although Bello didn't answer my question. So next person is the fourth estate fulfilling its role of keeping you informed about the genocide and the
All right.
Those are the two.
Thank you very much, sir. Yeah, the fourth state is doing that because it is because they are doing that we are well informed.
Hold on, Olushola, please hold on. Admin, can you mute Bello? Thank you very much.
Yeah, I've muted him.
All right, Olushola, please go ahead. Olushola, I didn't get your submission. You said yes, the fourth estate is doing its fulfilling its role.
Yes, sir. They are doing, they're playing their role because it is through them that a lot of us get to know that there is a agenda that is being pushed about Christian genocide. And again, for you asked the question for, I don't know if I can quickly, there's a link between the removal of service chiefs and the genocide, because if the issue of the genocide is raised by the media, it poses a question on the integrity and the capability of the service chiefs. Hence the reason why they are also removed. Because it's an eyesore that we have service chiefs in power and then they could not solve the issue and it has made its way into the media. So the coup is not the only reason why they were removed. This particular news of genocide is also one of the reasons why they were removed.
Thank you very much, Olushola. All right, two more.
And the media has played its role. Thank you, sir.
All right. Israel.
Okay, thank you once again. I think I'll start by saying I'm actually a social media fan, but that doesn't stop me from following the Punch, Arise TV, and the channels, and even Sahara reports for more details as regards national security and matters. But I think the informations are not actually being circulated well by the journalists, by the fourth estate, because I feel there are some things that, especially the genocide, the massacre, we actually had most of those informations when the U.S. Senate actually brought that to the table. So it was actually a global thing first before we started hearing it more. That even when Renault had to debunk such and other persons had to do that. So it didn't happen there first. But meanwhile, for the coup, I think they really did not hammer on that. I also feel that maybe as regards security, most times they keep the media, the fourth estates out of it most times. They really don't give them the full details. That's my opinion though.
Okay, can we have a lady, two ladies weighing on the matter? Let me let you all know now, I'm a he for she, okay? Raised by a single mom, so I believe women
All
have
right, Victoria.
Yes, Victoria, go on.
Yes, I'm of the opinion that the fourth estate are not really doing what they ought to do in Nigeria. Like the last speaker just said, most of the thing we heard it from the social media, not from the news media. It was when others were crying. Then, let's take for instance, some of us that have a military family that are military serving in Maiduguri. The last killing that they killed, could you believe it that the chief, the military, that's the top, their superior, were watching, even betting, arguing that the army we conquer them, or the enemy will conquer. They were even making it as a thing of debate, watching until they kill the soldiers. So it's only people that are closer that we can hear information from, family members or maybe the social media, that we get something. So that's why when they're talking about the Christian, they say whether Christian genocide or even some Muslims are being killed. You hear even people are giving arguments among friends that we are friends that we are not supposed to talk about religion, something to bring discrimination. But the way they presented it, people, the fourth estate is not really educating and bringing it to know that Nigeria will really need help, that as they are killing the Christian, where there are no Christians, the Muslim as well, they kill. So I think that they are not really balancing and educating us well. Or maybe the information do get to them, and probably for fear or for whatever, as you said, that you have to weigh it. How is it going to be to affect the listener? Probably they are trying to cook it for us before presenting it. I don't really know, but I think they're not really doing well.
Thank you very
That's
much,
my own
Victoria.
opinion.
Thank you, Victoria. One more lady, please. No ladies want to take it up. Is this Rosalind's hands we see up? I don't know, Mariam?
All right. Manasseh, I've asked you to unmute.
No, let's ask a
I can
lady.
see.
Manasseh, we've heard from
Okay,
Manasseh.
lady.
Let's hear from a
All
lady.
right.
I can see, I
Let me
think
go back.
Rosalind.
Okay. I've said one. Bidemi Fumilayo, I've asked you to unmute.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Okay, I from my own perspective, I think that the fourth they're not really doing especially in terms of that genocide and also the coup. It's like I heard it internationally first. I started seeing the news and I was wondering, I was like, why are they taking it up internationally? And we are over in Nigeria, is like nothing's happening. It was so funny that way. And for the coup too, I don't think they are really giving us what we should know. That's what I think, actually. Thank you.
All right, Fumilayo, thank you so much. Okay, so again, let's have a look at these things and what the media is doing. Some people say yes, they're doing enough. Some say no, they're not doing enough. Regarding the genocide, some of you have said we heard it first abroad before we heard it here in Nigeria, which means the media in Nigeria is not doing enough. For the coup, some of you have said, well, some of these matters are being kept from our hearing. Now, let me just start with the coup. As far as the fourth estate is concerned, we deal with facts. It's very, very challenging to get facts, especially when it comes to things like a military coup. Don't forget, Nigeria and even Africa were still grappling, especially our sub-region, West Africa. We're still grappling with the romanticization of military coups and military takeovers. Our media house, we are a talk radio station. It's focused on news and current affairs. So it means we have a lot of conversations about national issues. From time to time, you get people calling up and saying, look, things are too hard. This government doesn't know what it's doing. Nigerians are dying. Take us back to 2015 days when things were cheaper. Let the military come back and let the military come back. So we keep getting, these words, people saying, let the military come back and so on and so forth. Was that actually a coup? We don't know. We can only look at what was reported. As far as the coup is concerned, the Ministry of Defense did put out that statement that, yes, it had arrested some senior army officers. And the reason it gave was that they did not pass their exams and so on and so forth. So the knowledge we have at hand, and if you go and do your own independent research, I think you'll be hard-pressed to come up with a situation where a military officer was arrested for not passing an exam. At best, if it gets to a certain stage, you will be retired, but not that you are arrested. When you are arrested and brought for questioning, it means something else, some sort of indiscipline has taken place. It could be anything, okay? So this is what we know from the Ministry of Defense. We'll keep asking questions, whether we get accurate answers or not. But the reason put forward is one that raises more questions as far as we are concerned. It's not adding up. Again, arrest for not passing exams is something I've not heard of before. And I come from a military family, 3 generations, beg your pardon, deep. So I've never heard of that one before. Matters of national security, especially when it comes to military matters, tends to be a bit cagey. Nation states tend to hold their cards close to their chest, especially when it comes to their own internal challenges regarding security, especially, as I said, when it comes to things like a coup here in Nigeria. So until they come forward to say otherwise, this is what we have available to us. Officers were picked up and arrested. The Ministry of Defense says, amongst other things, they didn't pass their exams. Next thing we hear, service chiefs being retired. We're also told that the service chiefs were retired after the two-year cycle, of which we are meant to retain service chiefs. 2 years, then we retire them, then we take on a new set, 2 years, then we retire them. The last administration, we saw President Muhammadu Buhari extend, and extend, the tenure of service chiefs. So I don't know if that's a tradition that's been adhered to. Somebody asked the question, what happens to the senior officers, the officers who are senior to the newly named service chiefs? What I do know so far is that some of them will return to the Ministry of Defense. In what capacity? Or Defense Headquarters, beg your pardon, not the Ministry of Defense. That some of the officers who outrank the service chiefs will return to Defense Headquarters. What happens to them there? We are not clear on that. But the tradition is usually to retire, say, for example, the Chief of Army Staff. The tradition has been to retire officers that outrank him in seniority. Because it's not going to make sense for the junior one to give the senior one instructions and so on and so forth. Not good optics, basically. So this is what usually happens. So if they keep the tradition, we expect mass retirements. So these are the conversations that should be out in the media to explain what we do know without speculating. It's not my place to speculate. I can ask questions and probe based on my knowledge of how things work. Beyond that, as news media, it's my job to do that. And where I ask questions and I don't get answers, it's my job to say, these questions were asked and they were not answered. That's me doing my job. It's not my job to go and invent information or to speculate. That's for other people to do. So this is the role of the media. So has the media done enough in covering and reporting on the retirement of the service chiefs? Again, some of you have said yes, some have said no. Let's come back to the second one now, genocide. The issue of genocide, just last Tuesday, Cardinal Pietro Parolin is the Vatican Secretary of State. All right, now he said that the widely spread angle that there's a Christian genocide in Nigeria is not entirely justified. It's not accurate. He basically went on to say that insecurity challenges stem from a number of issues, which also include social issues. Now, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, he was speaking on the sidelines of the presentation of a report that was compiled by AIDS to the Church in Needs, ACN. So you can go out there, it's out there, you can find out this information for yourself. Now, speaking specifically to Christian persecution in Nigeria, he has cited reasons why we are seeing what we are seeing. He cited disputes between farmers and herders in the north central region, to be specific, as examples of some of these reports we are hearing. He also went on to say, let me also add this, that many Muslims are also being killed. So he's concluded by saying he doesn't see enough information to say there is a targeted genocide against Christians. Now, as the media, the fourth estate in the realm, have we done enough in this regard? Some of you have said yes, some of you have said no. So here's the thing. Insecurity in Nigeria has always been multifaceted. Let's take, for example, the situation in the north. You've got kidnapping, you've got banditry, you've got terrorism, you've got so different things going on. There are even communal clashes and sometimes religious differences, ethno-religious challenges, okay? It's very difficult to look at any sort of insecurity in the North and label it with one sticker. And the reason is this. Let's take, for example, this widely publicized one, Boko Haram in the Northeast. I come from the northeastern part of the country. So in Northeast, for example, Boko Haram, this is something that has been, there was a question that came up, this was in 2015, 2016, I believe it was. A question came up, who is funding Boko Haram? I did a feature on that. And at the end of it, I couldn't point my finger to tell you who is sponsoring Boko Haram. And the reason is this, different people had taken advantage of the situation, the Boko Haram situation. Different people had taken advantage of that situation for different reasons. Political thuggery had leaned on it, okay? Criminal intentions had leaned on it. In fact, there was a time when the governor, the then governor of Borno State, that was the current vice president, then he was Governor Kashim Shettima, he had to close down the markets in Maiduguri, cattle markets, one of the largest in the sub-region. He had to close it down. The reason is they found out that there were a lot of cattle rustling on both sides of the border between Nigeria and Cameroon. Over 50,000 head of cattle over a space of 4 years were rustled, and a significant number of those cattle were sold at the cattle markets in Maiduguri. This cattle was sold for tiny little amounts, like 40,000 naira, 50,000 naira. And we know there was at least 200,000 naira by then. So they were stolen by these terrorists, and they were traded through their intermediaries. They had agents that would take these cattle to the markets, sell it at a knocks-down price. So security caught onto that and shut down the markets. And as they shut down the markets, they realized that genuine cattle dealers would suffer. So they set aside the funds that they made available to genuine registered cattle dealers and said, look, the market is going to be closed. Market is going to be closed. So we're going to give you this to look after yourselves and your family so that you don't fall into criminal, that activities and so on. So that's one other part of it. It was the system used by the terrorists to raise funds, to supply, to go and purchase their arms and ammunitions, and so on and so forth. So there are different number of reasons why this happens. Then if you look at farmer-herders clashes again, this is another popular one, and it goes all the way down to the North Central. Why the North Central? Well, look, I'm a student of geography. If you look at the map of Nigeria, the North Central is a very fertile belt, okay? So it is not for any geopolitical reason as far as I'm concerned. I'm looking at simply the geography of what's going on. The North Central is a very fertile belt. We have our major rivers there. The land is lush, it is green. In fact, the River Benue even extends up to my neck of the woods. I come from the Adamawa Highlands. So it's very rich and fertile. And for 200 years, I will tell you, my ethnic group and another ethnic group have always been at loggerheads. And if you ask my people, they will tell you, oh, these other people, they want to kill us, they don't like us. But no, it is a battle for resources. They have cattle, we are predominantly farmers. So 40 years ago, when farming was restricted to rainy season alone, things were different. During rainy season, the farmers would go there with plants, and the cities were smaller, the population was smaller, so the unused land was a lot more. So cattle has their way, literally. Farmers will go and plant. But as time has gone on, our villages, our cities have grown, they've expanded. Farms have grown, they've expanded. And we've also learned year-round farming. So what does that mean? It means the people who do not farm have very little time of which they can access the resources they need. What do they need? Food and water. It's simple. So there's a conflict of how do we manage these resources? But my people will tell you, oh no, they're trying to kill us because they don't like us. No, it's resources. So the same goes down along the Benue, along the Niger. This is a fertile belt. It's a competition for resources that has not been managed well by the state, in my humble opinion. So this is insecurity from the rustling and the farmer herders perspective. If you look at kidnapping now, look at the Northwest. The Northwest has suddenly seen a flurry of activity in kidnapping. People have always lived there. So why is this thing on the rise? Well, since the military have put on the squeeze on Boko Haram, some of them have broken away. So some of them have found other ways to continue their nefarious activities, some for commercial gains and not religious ideology. Other groups we've seen coming into the fray, the La Kurawa, it's a coined phrase from La Recrue. That's people who were recruited into some of the Francophone militaries that have been disbanded. They've come down. initially they offered protection to some of our northwestern communities from criminal activities, but they have now become a force of their own and they're challenging the states and they engage in other nefarious activities. If you pay attention, you will listen to the Ministry of Solid Mineral Resources. I believe the vice presidents during the last National Economic Council meeting made mention about our resources being stolen. So some of these things are tied together. Why is there conflict in areas where there are mineral resources or there are resources, commercial resources? Why do we have conflict in these areas? You won't hear about conflict in areas where there is nothing. So is there perhaps a tie there? So these are areas the media needs to come in to try to educate. Now, regarding the persecution and the targeted killing of Christians, genocide is the deliberate targeting of people. Some of you will say, oh, we heard it first abroad. The government has come out and taken a position. I report a lot on conflicts. I've done so for years. We also partner with some media organizations. And I'll tell you this, it is very difficult to get the demographics of people who are being killed by insecurity in northern Nigeria. When I say the demographics, it's difficult to talk about gender, age, religion. But instead, the demographics, the reports we do have are about communities. So if there's an attack in a community that is predominantly Christian and the people are killed, obviously people are going to say, these people were attacked because they were Christians. That is one bias you hear. But there are some communities, I'll use my mother's village as an example. The population there is 50-50. 50% my ethnic group, 50% Fulani. So if there's an attack there, the odds are you're going to have people on both sides dying, okay? This is how it works. But it is very, very mischievous for there to be an attack. Again, this is north central Nigeria. It's very mischievous for there to be an attack in a place where there are both religions and many ethnic groups. If 10 people are killed in a place, and let us use the Wazobia principle. Let's say 9 people, sorry. Wazobia is Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo. Yes? I'm trying to talk about equal representation here. Because even in death, we must be equal, as we have said in Nigeria. Everybody must be equal. So let's take it to the graveyard. So if 9 people are killed in a generic space in Nigeria, you expect that 3 would be Hausa, 3 would be Yoruba, 3 would be Igbo. Go to another community, another 9 people are killed. The same thing applies. It's going to be mischievous for somebody to stand up and say, Igbos are being killed. Igbos are being targeted when the other 2 ethnic groups have died as well. It's going to be mischievous for somebody to say in another community, Yorubas are being targeted, Yorubas are being killed, when the other 2 ethnic groups have lost people as well. So this is what we are seeing. So we are not saying Christians are not being killed, but journalists know, we know that Muslims are also being killed. So for that reason alone, does it give oxygen to the Christian genocide? No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Because again, if you go to the extreme ends, this is just the north central. If you go to the northwest, many of the people there are Muslims. So when you hear about people being killed, and they do get killed and kidnapped in schools, they're predominantly going to be of one religion. So we need to be careful in our narrative. These are the spaces the media needs to step into to educate people properly, to say, this is what's going on. It's like the 3 blind men, who were brought up to an elephant, and they were asked, what animal is this? One was holding the tail and it describes something else. One was holding the stomach, it describes something else. One was holding the trunk, it describes something else. But it's an elephant. So the perspectives were different because they were very, very rigid. Instead of moving around to investigate, to find out what's going on, we will simply look for what suits our whatever biased narrative, and we will go with that. Hey, genocide Christians. We cannot find any supporting evidence to speak to this. We really cannot find any supporting evidence. I do toe the line that this is mischievous meddling by the Western, not just the Western press, but to be specific, Senator Ted Cruz. It's mischievous meddling in the country that has very, very sensitive ethno-religious sentiments. It is mischievous to introduce this sort of narrative to us. Once again, all faiths, and even non-Christians and non-Muslims, you see, we take it for granted. There are some people who are not Muslims or Christians. They also have equal rights under the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. They are also being killed. So I don't know, the way things are going, maybe tomorrow we'll hear there's a genocide against non-Christian and non-Muslim people. So we need to be very careful with the information we push and peddle. Let us report the facts as they are. These are the things we do know. These are the things we see. How you interpret the fact is going to be entirely up to you. We are all entitled to our opinion. We all need to respect the facts that we are all entitled to our opinion, but the fact is always sacred because it is the fact. Okay, so these are the spaces the media needs to step into. The Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, these are all organizations that are wading on this genocide conversation, but the media clearly, we need to do more. Another issue I just want to drop this before we go is the Free Nnamdi Kanu protests. I've been inundated with phone calls. Oh, how many people's rights are being abused? Again, it's up to the media to educate people. In 1 minute, I will just sum it up. The Nigeria Police Force approached the Federal High Court in Abuja, requesting the courts ban protesters from protesting around some areas they listed: Aso Rock Villa, National Assembly Complex, the Nigerian Police Force Headquarters, Eagle Square, Shehu Shagari Way, at the Court of Appeal. Those are the areas they listed. They went to the courts and said, please stop them from protesting around these areas. We're not saying they can't protest. They can protest anywhere, but please, these areas, we're wary because these are sensitive areas. The court granted it. The protesters went ahead and still protested and went out. At the end of the day, we saw tear gas being used. There were reports. In fact, I was following the protests live when people were saying, they are firing us, they are firing us. It was tear gas being shot. When you say they are firing us, people's minds go back to NSAS. We start to think, hey, they're using guns to shoot Nigerians. We need to be responsible and careful in how we report things as they are. So people ask the question, Cameron, why were they banned from protesting? I don't know. All I know is the police went to court. The court gave an order. Protesters went out. Protesters violated court order. Police enforcing the law arrested protesters who violated the court order. So the question there is, were the protesters' rights violated? So the media now needs to come in and simply lay it out. This is what happens. This is what the law says. This is what the law says. Ours is not to be sentimental. If anything, I would have advised the protesters to say, all right, look, the court has said don't do it in these areas. You can equally make a mark by protesting outside these areas. Abuja is a large city. You can still make your voices heard. Or you can go and challenge the court, the High Court ruling. Don't forget, there's a Supreme Court. Go and challenge the High Court ruling and say, no, we have a right to protest. Why are you stopping us from doing this? Because here's the thing. As long as the court has said you cannot do this, that law stands until you can vacate that law. And the way to vacate the law is to challenge that law court at a higher court. So that's how it works. So the police were simply enforcing the law. Now, people said, why use tear gas? Well, when you are faced with a crowd that is intent on doing what it's intent on doing, the police force across the world have a number of things they can bring to the table, non-lethal methods to control the crowd. This doesn't exclude our own police, okay? So then many non-lethal methods, I can list about 17, 18 for you, but we don't have the time to go into that. But somebody asked the question, but Cameron, why use tear gas when there's water cannon? Well, for your information, water cannon is more lethal than tear gas. That water cannon is enough to throw you to the ground. You could break a limb. Tear gas causes an irritation in your throat. It's meant to make it uncomfortable for you to leave an area. It is lethal maybe to people who have a respiratory condition. But before using any of these methods, the police are expected to do a number of things. Okay, first they must tell you there's a court order saying you cannot be here. Please leave. They repeat it. They use microphones, megaphones to make sure everybody hears. If that doesn't work, they can form a line and try to physically push people away from these areas. If that doesn't work, they can use their shield, but we don't have shields and batons, okay, to push the crowd back. If that doesn't work, they can move to the tear gas. If that doesn't work, there's water cannons. If that doesn't work, there are rubber bullets. So there are any number of non-lethal methods available to the police to enforce the law, okay? But we are being disingenuous when we just stand and say, no, I have a right to be there, when a court has said, I don't have the right to be there. Here's the thing. The court has the right to suspend any of our rights under certain circumstances. You have the right to go and break into my house and steal my things because, hey, you've got the right of freedom of expression, yes? And if you choose to express yourself in criminal activity, you also are free to do so. But the state also has the right to catch you and prosecute you. And if you are found guilty, the state also has the right to take another one of your rights away from you, the right to freedom of movement. They will lock you up. That suspends your, I have the right to move around. If you're a convicted criminal, they take that right away from you. In fact, the state even has a right to deprive you of your life because the Constitution tells you in human rights that you have the right to life. But there's circumstances when the courts can deprive you of that right. If I go and commit a crime that carries the death penalty and put to the courts and I'm found guilty, the state will take my right to life away from me. It's not enough for me to stand there and say, nope, I have the right to life. You can't send me to the execution. No, I forfeit that right. So it's about knowing what the law says and what we can and we cannot do. This is a space that needs to be filled by media. We are not sitting in judgment over who is right or wrong. We are simply looking at what the law says. And the reason we are doing so is to ensure that the state doesn't overstep its bounds. The state shouldn't overstep its power in, the name of we are trying to enforce the law. There are conditions, there are ways, there's the protocol for the state to act. So this is how it goes, all right? So I think, Mariam, let's just open up the phone lines for, I think, 2 more questions or observations before I move on to the final segment. So anybody have a question or observation? Please, now's the time.
All right.
It only takes 3.
Thank you very much. Ahmad Lawal, I'm not sure if your hand is raising for the question or observation that's been raising for long, and Ibrahim Mohammed. So I'm just going to unmute you. If it's not that, you can speak out. Ahmad Lawal, I've asked you to unmute.
Ahmadu, go first, please. Maybe Ahmadu Lawal has stepped aside. Who's the second person?
All right, so let's take Ibrahim Mohammed. Ibrahim Omar Mohammed, I've asked you to unmute.
Hello.
Yes,
Okay,
Ibrahim Omar,
thank you.
please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Ibrahim.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. I went through your slides presentation before the classes. So I have 2 questions.
Go ahead.
The difference between new media and social media. Because when I read it, I will try to understand both. Because some governments now, as state government, are giving SSA or SA to new media and SA to social
Absolutely.
media.
Yes.
Then that they separate it. Then in the social media, the reason why I say I don't understand the social media and the new media is there is some news medias that are basically online news. They're basically online. They're
Yes.
not physical newspapers or TV but they do send some headlines or some news. Can we categorize that one in terms of the new media or the social media?
All right, good question. Go ahead.
Lastly is you talk about the framing of the both of the religions, Islam or Christianity. We as Fulanis, I'm from Bauchi State, so we Fulanis are being framed for many things. So what advice are you going to give us, the trainees of the electoral college, on to resist on that? Because I really enjoy what you're saying about the people will be killed like 3 or 6 or 3, but in that location is mostly 3 tribes, but they will just categorize one tribe and frame the tribe as the tribe that done that. Thank you very much, sir.
All right, thank you, Ibrahim. Anyone else before I want to take the answers at once?
All right.
Is Ahmadu back?
Okay, Utibe Abasi, I've asked you to unmute and ask your question.
Utibe Abasi, welcome back.
Good evening.
Welcome back.
Good evening, sir, and thank you for this very awesome class. Okay, I have several questions, but I'll try to keep them short and then also reduce it to like 2. So first off, I want to start from the issue of social media, which has now made citizen journalism very a known thing. I'm actually into the research space in various angles, and so I once spoke with a journalist who asked me to do a research on citizen journalism, and we discovered that citizen journalism have also caused a lot of harm to governance. Like, for example, a lot of this wrong reportage that comes out is based on citizen journalism. Someone will just sit in his house and then tweet something that is not true, something he has not fact-checked at all. So how do we solve that problem? Because I feel that's why the Sultan of Sokoto is insisting on the regulation of social media. while I also feel that that issue of regulating the social media has political biases, or should I say political drums, and that's why as citizens we don't want it to happen. So how can we achieve controlling the spread of fake news and fake news as a whole, and what we would call yellow journalism in those days, through social media, without having to regulate social media? Because once we are now regulating social media, you now bring up the issue of political drums. Then my second question is, you talked about journalism having to be independent, journalists having to be independent. Now we have governors appoint SA on media, we have governors appoint SA on both new media and of course local media. And while people may not really ask questions, for the fact that I've stayed a bit close to the corridors, I discovered that this guy, that was made some years ago, I discovered that these guys are appointed to actually shape a narrative. Let's take, for instance, the PDP and the APC, they have a media team. And 99% of the media team, if not all, they have a WhatsApp group. And in their WhatsApp group, they have citizen journalists. I call them citizen journalists because like 80% of them are not professional journalists. Their work is to shape the narrative. So for instance, let's say PDP has done something highly terrible. They know it's terrible. And so the public secretary will come out with a press release that will make the terrible thing look like one of the most beautiful things after sliced bread. And then all of them on the WhatsApp group would share it, now giving us an entirely different narrative. And because the main journalists, the properly trained journalists, are now waiting for facts, before they even find this fact, we have already swallowed this fake narrative, and we are running with the narrative. So how do we control that? Because that's also a huge problem that's affecting governance. Thank you.
Okay. All right, let me just jump right to it. I believe, let me start with the first one. Ibrahim asked the question, say, what's the difference between new media and social media? Well, new media is targeted at social media as well as online publications. That is all new media. At the start of my presentation, I spoke of news media, not new media. News media is basically the press. Okay, it's important we distinguish between media is a broad term. It's a big umbrella with many things under it. The press is the press. Okay, news media is the press. The press is the press as you know it. Press is made up of journalists. Journalists are governed by certain ethics, which I listed, that govern our profession. We draw our powers from the Constitution. We are here to hold governments to account on your behalf. That is the power of the press. Social media or a new media that some governments have. Beg your pardon? Somebody needs to be muted. Otibe. Okay. Maybe admin. All right, let me just do that. So new media is different from news media that I said, news being the press. New media is basically, there's, you know, the disruption brought about by the digital realm, you know, has seen it necessary for the government to have an office that speaks to that. And that's why you have their SSs on new media. A lot of you do your information online. You get most of the information online. How many of you go out and physically buy a newspaper or get your news from watching the news on television or listen to the news on radio? Most of it comes online. Okay, so that is new media. That's that realm where these people operate. Then you ask for advice, you know, the Fulanis of this peacefully. What's the best way going forwards? How do we go about it? As I said, my mom's village, half of it's Fulani, the other half is my ethnic group. We've lived together for 200 years and different lifestyles. One's farming, other ones are pastoralists. So there used to be a clash. The clash between both societies was managed in the past because it wasn't as frequent. There were more options. But today, in fact, since Professor Jibril Aminu, the late Professor Jibril Aminu, came up with nomadic education, I'm hard-pressed to come up with a situation that saw the federal government look to the pastoralists in our midst, that is Fulanis. Not every Fulani is nomadic, and not every nomad is Fulani. I don't know if I'm making sense. Not everyone you see herding cattle is Fulani, and not every Fulani is not a cattle herder. You've got them in the doctors, they're scientists, and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's stop this stereotyping. But predominantly, what do we do with a large community that is still rather nomadic? We have not carried them along, in my opinion. As I said, the last meaningful intervention was nomadic education by Professor Jibril Aminu. Fast forward to 2025. Your so-called old cattle routes and everything, these things have been overtaken by development. We've not had a conversation that, okay, this town is going to spread, we're going to go across these cattle routes, grazing routes. The question of what happens to the people who use these grazing routes was not treated. It's like having twins and then sending one to the best schools in Nigeria, and then the other one, you say, no, you won't go to school, you follow me to the farm. When you die, how do you want these two, sisters or brothers to relate? How? You've not treated them equally, you've not carried them along. So this is part of the problem we have today. Well, like the Chinese say, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now. It's not too late. We need to sit down. There's a gentleman, and I have high regard and respect for him. He's an agricultural engineer, incidentally, Dr. Umar Binder. He's written extensively on development and so on and so forth. I've had conversations with him about, how do we develop, especially the northeastern part of the country, which is arguably the least developed part of this country. How do we do it? How do we carry along? Even the pastoralist conversation, we've talked about this. We've talked about deploying technology. We've talked about ranching. So we've talked extensively about these things. The solutions are there. They just simply need to be driven. Okay? Otibe Abasi, you talked about social media, basically the threats brought about by social media, referencing the Sultan in this position. What do we do about it? I don't think we should regulate social media. I think what we need to do is to make sure there is more accurate information out there. Eventually, people will choose and gravitate towards what will suit them. We can only hope that the human spirit will gravitate more towards the good. But for now, we need to push out the good as much as possible instead of shutting down this thing, because like it or not, social media also saves lives. Social media also provides a means for jobs and livelihoods for people. So to over-regulate it is going to, encroach in some of these spaces, which we don't want to see. So again, it's about getting the truth out there as much as possible. My organization is founded more on truth and accuracy than speed when it comes to news dissemination. So we need to have the truth out there more for people to choose. When people are presented with the choice, we can show them how to identify what is true and what is false, how to question everything that you come across. That would help. You also talked about SSAs and independent journalism. Look, we've been playing catch up to the political elite in Nigeria time immemorial. And the reason is pretty simple. It's because we've not focused enough on education. We have not equipped the everyday Nigerian with enough knowledge, and we've not improved our capacity for strategic thinking enough that we can withstand misinformation to the stage that we take it in nowadays. This is the simple fact. I'm an advocate for education, and I'm not just simply talking about academic education. Okay, there's a lot that needs to be said. Bashing kids with books over their heads is not going to make them brighter human beings tomorrow. Some of the smartest kids in the world are Scandinavian. They spend their time in their early childhoods climbing trees. When we were crashing our own children with formula, read, cram. You go to school, read, you come back, lesson after lesson, homework after homework, sleep, you wake up, school. So book. The human mind is a powerful tool. We need to focus on shaping and giving it all it needs, which also includes nutrition. Some people have castigated the school feeding program, but some of the benefits of the school feeding program are that it seeks to also get some of the important nutrients to children at the formative years of their brains. It's very important we do this. So we need to develop our knowledge capacity. This is what will equip us to withstand some of the negative influences out there. This is how it works. The governors, they're doing what they need to do. It's not just the governors. If you look around the world, there's a close relationship between big business and governance. Big business tends to like to control the media. They have newspapers, they have TV channels and so on. They want to control the narrative because they are big business. Anything that threatens their establishments, they want to get on top of it. So they do this by weighing in heavily on the media. The media is a very powerful tool for shaping any country. So we shouldn't expect them to not be in that space. What we need to do is to enhance the capacity of our media and also develop the, educational capacity of the everyday Nigerian. I don't believe you can change a person's life by gathering people into a hall and telling them this is right and this is wrong. That's not how it works. When you gradually show them other opportunities, there are some people who do what they do because that's what they saw happening when they were born. This is what they see today. As far as they're concerned, this is their norm. But we need to expand their minds and show them, look, there are options. There are options. Even criminals, some people turn to crime because that's all they've known, especially the northeastern part of the country. There are 10-year-olds today who think violence is the way because this is all they've seen. So if we show the people another way, we give them financial security. Basically, if you don't have a job today, there's something that will make sure you have one meal in your stomach every day. You don't have to steal. Or we will educate you enough that you can be a meaningful contributor to your society. You know, these are some of the things we need to bring to the table. Broaden our opportunities, enlighten people, educate them, show them more options. The human spirit is generally good. The bad ones will be taken care of by your law enforcement and so on and so forth. But predominantly, people are inherently good. If you show them opportunities, they will go out there, they will be productive. So I'm not going to fault any governor for appointing a news media. How do you know what is right and wrong? That's a big one. Even as information managers, as the head of news, verification for me has become a very, very arduous, but very, very crucial task. Authenticating information. So I'm on the phone a lot of times, speaking to witnesses, speaking to stakeholders, speaking to reporters, speaking to secondary stakeholders, you know, very, very important. Instead of just taking what I'm given and running with it. Hey, this newspaper published this, let me read. No. I'm trained to question everything. Even my own work, I question my own work, much less a third party. So if we, you know, imbibe some of these questioning habits in managing information, it will do us a lot of good. Okay, that's all the questions we can take for now. I'll skip a huge part of the lecture and just simply touch very quickly on misinformation and disinformation and then wrap it up. There are many credible media houses out there who are doing a good job of holding our government accountable, and not just our government, their governments as well. But even the best of them sometimes can manipulate information, all right? Many people regard misinformation as just lying in general. That's not entirely correct. Misinformation is the accidental sharing of inaccurate or false information. It means you don't know that this thing is bad. You just simply get it and you just share it. Meanwhile, it is bad information. You have misinformed people. But disinformation with a D, disinformation, is the deliberate sharing of inaccurate or false information. That means you know it is bad, you know it is not good, but you go and share it. You are disinforming, that's disinformation. All right. One is damaging, but it's not intentional. But the other one is a deliberate and calculated attempt to mislead. We see a lot of this today. Okay. But my industry tells me to report the facts as they are, not as I want them to be. So if, again, 9 people die in one village of different ethnic groups, my training tells me I must report the number of people who died and focus on the facts, because everybody has the right to life. I don't like identity politics. I don't play identity politics. My media house, we frown on identity politics, but we understand and we recognize that ethnic sentiments are very strong in Nigeria. Okay, but identity politics, we don't like identity politics at all. I mean, somebody has been killed in a gruesome manner. Their ethnic group should be the least of your concern. If it can happen to them, it can happen to you. This should be our immediate concern, not where they're from or how they pray or what they eat. Those are secondary issues. The more important thing is this person was murdered. If an injury to one is an injury to all, who's next? That should be our concern, not which tribe you be. And what does that have to do with anything? So we need to try to manage our identities, our ethnic identities. They're very important. There's an important part of us. Every human being has multiple layers of identity. You have a biological identity, you're a human being. You've got a continental identity, you're an African. You've got a regional identity, you're West African. You've got a national identity, you're Nigerian. You've got a state identity, you've got a local government identity, you've got an ethnic identity, religious identity, you've got a social identity, you've got a professional identity. All these layers of identity are not in conflict with each other. They all have their place. They all have their place, okay? For example, if you go to a meeting in New York, a gathering of people of the world, most probably interested in your national identity and not your ethnic or religious identity. Which country are you from? And that's it. That's enough for them. They're not bothered about your social identity or whatnot. If it's a gathering of the world's people, that's what they're interested in. So every layer has its use and its place. Okay, we shouldn't just grab one and run with it. We tend to run more with our religious and ethnic identities. I feel this is because the state has not been firm in affording us protection. So we gravitate towards these other identity clusters that we feel afford us the protection that the state is not. A strong justice system doesn't care your tribe, religion. It looks at the constitution. But some of us feel that we are overlooked and we are not heard because we are maybe minorities and so on and so forth. There are some countries, take the UK, for example. There are many people in the UK that can't tell you where Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, is from. They're not bothered. They don't care where he's from. All they're concerned about is their taxes, the public services, and make sure everything is going well. But if something goes wrong, then they will look, this man, what are you doing? But when things are going well, they're not bothered about the man. They don't care where he's from. Again, they're only bothered about these issues. So hopefully we will develop to that level instead of this tax reform that has been going, na Huduam, na Yoruba man, na Hausa man, na Igbo man. Come on, guys. You know, the taxes affect you regardless of your ethnic identity. So these are strong sentiments that, you know, we need to drive forward. It's part of the role of the media, set an agenda. Hopefully we will arrive at that point. All right, Mariam, I believe everyone's got my notes. So there's a little bit at the ends there that questions how you manage information. There's a general belief that because you're the press, we're meant to report everything and we say everything. But don't forget, you must do no harm. There are certain things you will come across and you will be called upon to weigh and lean on your editorial judgment. This thing I have found out now. Why do I want to publish it? If I publish it, will it result in people being harmed? Will people take to the streets? Will they hurt themselves? We need to constantly consider all these things because we are here to serve public interest, not to harm public interest. So the fourth estate of the realm in Nigeria, it's facing a lot of challenges, okay, just like many other parts of the world. We face our own challenges. The economic challenge is a huge one because it tends to want to dictate what the media, the press does to a certain extent. Some media houses are standing firm, standing true to the ethics of the profession in service to humanity, in service of public interest. But to strengthen the fourth estate in Nigeria, it's going to take women and men of deeply rooted principles of service. This group of individuals, they are better placed to fight off the temptation to misinform people or look the other way when they come across any sort of wrongdoing. The state of our economy, as I've said, and the quality of life here makes it pretty challenging for people to stay true to their principles and ethics. But please, let us not despair, okay? Let us not despair. All hope is not lost. This is a great country. And if you look closely, I tell you, you will find these upright members of society among us. That's people who choose to do the right thing. These people are the sentinels of our democracy. Right. Thank you so much, Electoral College, for this opportunity to once again facilitate this topic. Thank you all. Mariam, I'll hand it back to you.
All right. Thank you very much. It has really been a very interesting class. It's always very lovely to have you here. I believe everybody is going on with a full bag of information. Thank you very much once again. Really appreciate you for always coming through to the Electoral College. So I don't know if we can take maybe a few questions before we go.
Yes, go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much. Sorry, excuse me. I've asked you to unmute. Amadu Lawal.
Yeah, good evening.
Amadu, good evening.
Yes, good evening, sir. Good evening, the house and everybody. I really appreciate your postulations and your opinions about the general affairs about Nigeria. I was just on the meeting. You have answered most of my questions or my own opinions as well, because most people actually think that the insecurity in Nigeria is directed to a specific ethnic group, which I disagree. Most people that go, because just as you said, the Fulani people there, it's a large ethnic group. And I was born a Muslim, and I know that not all Fulani people are Muslims. You have most of them that are herders are not even Muslims. But the general idea in Nigeria is that the Fulani man has been tagged or stereotyped as the people invading Nigeria. Yes, there is an invasion in Nigeria, but we should get the true perspective of it. Humanity matters more than what we will want to just always align to a specific ethnic group. So thank you so much, sir, for your postulations today and the discussion. I'm really honored.
Thank you, Ahmadu.
Yes, sir.
Next one, Mariam.
All right. Safila, wax it on mute. Saifullah, rather, wax it on mute.
Saifullah Waziri.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Mine is regarding the regulation of the social media. I've heard your opinion with respect to what the Sultan is preaching, and I'm also in line with that. It's not that the social media should be too regulated, but the way it is being used in Nigeria, there is no regulation. If we consider countries like United States, the UK, the EU, the France, China, they all have regulations of social media, either in terms of the content that is being used, where there are systems that retrieve or remove what is considered as hate speech, or post from people that are underage. So seriously, once there's regulation, it will reduce a lot of what we are facing. Yes, posting or sharing ideas on the media should be free, but there should be systems that will now monitor what people are sharing, so that once things are being tagged as hate speech, they will be removed. So leaving it open will still continue to have a lot of things, so that every day or any person can just wake up and post whatever he or she wants, and that may lead to a lot of chaos. So I also strongly believe we should consider regulating the social media.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes.
Chairman, good day, everyone. Good day, Camry, my Oga. As always,
My honorable Easy, I greet you, sir.
This is the real Kunle Lawal.
This is the real.
Well, this is the real Kunle Lawal. I had their others. So I'd like to chip in a little bit on what he just said. Yes, for one of those who stood behind the say no to the social media bill sometime in 2014 or 2013, if I'm right. Over time and with what people have done, I've seen a pattern where I think some regulation is necessary. But now we need to go into the laws of Nigeria and the kind of pact Nigeria has signed internationally. Internationally, in Nigeria, when the internet was being set up, I think when it started getting, and a few laws were made, Nigeria is one of those that agreed on within the UN, United Nations, and agreed fairly that the laws which are applicable physically are applicable online. Hence the reason you've been seeing defamation cases and people picking others and etc. Now, this is gone on not only because the laws which we have physically also apply to the laws online. So I don't know what kind of regulation you were talking about, except you want to put a COVID mask entirely on people. So there must be regulation, but that regulation also has to be controlled. And that's why it's so simple to say the laws which are applicable physically are applicable also on the internet. That's a simple way of regulating it, because those laws kind of protect and guide us. Oga Camry, I remain loyal. A part of this story I wouldn't tell people. So the first radio show I was ever on was Camry and Stanley Bentu. That's a very young politician at the time. I had just become National Publicity Secretary. I was the youngest. I was younger than youth leaders at the time. Kowa Party. And I was a young guy. Kowa Party was what you call Labour as of now. I had a female presidential candidate. It was a hot thing. Sorry, this preceding 2013. And I had Camry and Stanley Bentu. And they were so highly intelligent. I could hear their English, their command of English, the way they talk. I was like, I want to be like this guy. But this is like, today we took a stock. It's about 1,000 radio programs after. And I'll still say
Oh, yeah.
thank you to Oga Kamri for the exposure and for the time I spent with him. I learned how to discuss objectively and not emotionally. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your kind words, Easy. Talking about the regulation there, I think civil law is enough for now. Civil law. So where people are hurt, they're aggrieved, then perpetrators can be brought to book and let the courts just simply decide. I think civil law can regulate social media. We can't legislate love. We can't legislate love your neighbor as yourself. You know, people will do what they will. But I think social media is fine as it is. In fact, now we even have better ways of tracking people. Now we're tying BVNs, NINs, and so on and so forth. So if something happens on social media, the perpetrator can be reached and the courts will decide. I think that should be enough for now. But I don't think there's a need to gag or to this, that, the other, you know. And the platforms, as far as the platforms are concerned, I think we need to be careful with our data management. I'm more concerned about that. You know, what they do with our data, our privacy concerns are very, very real. So I'm one of the people pushing for them to have a physical office here. Obviously, they avoid doing that because if they have a physical office here, then we can, you know, prosecute them for violating some laws that they violate. Other countries are suing them for stepping outside the line. So why shouldn't we? We are a large country, 200 million plus. So if you want your Meta, your this, that, the other, your X, come and open an office here. But they're afraid to do that because they fear prosecution by the governments. So data protection to me is more important. Anything else, defamation, so on and so forth, civil courts can take care of that. You say something wrong about me, I go to courts. Just like the EDS said, you'll see a rise in some of these cases now. So let civil law be the regulator of social media. We don't really need much other than to educate people on what is true and how to look for the truth. Beyond that, you know, humanity is a mixed bag. There's some good eggs, there's some bad eggs. We can't just throw out the bad eggs because they've even got the right to be there as well, believe it or not. Right, next one.
All right. Oluwaseyi Afolabi, I've asked you to unmute. You can ask your question.
Good evening.
Good evening, Oluwaseyi.
My name is Oluwaseyi. Yeah, thank you, sir. Sir, thank you for this class. I'm really grateful. I think I want to thank Mr. Kule Lawal for setting up this electoral college. My yesterday lecture and today's lecture was insightful, and I'm really grateful for that. Now, sir, I want to just ask a question from you. Our electoral system, the vote of a professor, okay, let me say your vote is equivalent to the vote of a stark illiterate anywhere in Nigeria. The vote of a professor, of an economist, of a legal luminary can easily be wiped out by some rascals, area boys, whatever you want to call them, miscreants that politicians gather to polling units. What do you think we can do going forward? Because I find that, yes, people on this platform, I want to believe we all on this platform have our voters card, we want to vote. But I can tell you that on the day of election, if I and you are not able to galvanize enough people to the polling unit, these boys on the street that know next to nothing, that don't even know where to even put their thumb to thumbprint, will wipe out our vote. So I'm asking, what's your opinion on this? Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right, Oluwaseyi, I think first of all, I don't like treating symptoms. I go straight to the roots of the problem. I think first of all, we need to engage the Nigerian youth. They are seriously unengaged, and that is why they fall victim to some criminal elements who use them for their nefarious aims and so on and so forth. So the problem is unengaged youth in Nigeria. Take, for example, okay, look at our tertiary institutions. We have about anywhere between 1.5 to 1.9 million people writing JAM every year. We have tertiary institutions churning out anywhere between 600 to 700,000 graduates every year. We are not creating 600,000 or 700,000 jobs every year, I can tell you. So what that means is we are leaving a lot of people in financial doubt. Financial security is a very important thing. Financial security means even if you don't have money in your pocket today, you don't have to steal. You will be able to eat tomorrow because there's a welfare system that will look after you until you get the next job. Or once you've been through, education, secondary school education, you are employable, you will have a job to do. So your financial security is taken care of. Like it or believe it or not, human beings are not prone to danger. Not all of us are adrenaline junkies. Most people are born to literally socialize and integrate with their communities. If you give them a chance, they will end up becoming productive members and make contributions to their societies. This is how humanity is. We're not wired to go and carry gun or stick and go and be knacking ourselves on harm on body. This is contrary to the norm. So the challenge is engaging the Nigerian youth meaningfully. I'll use Lagos as a case study. I was born here, but I've not been to Lagos more than 10 times in my entire life. Taking up this position here is my longest stay in this town. Okay, I came here to 2023, February. What I keep hearing from people is, there are lots of agberos here, all these touts, all these thugs. What is the government doing? The government is not doing anything. And I draw them back and I say, look, you are too close to the problem, that when there's very little progress, you don't see it because you're too close to it. We are looking in from out. This is what we see. Years ago, I heard reports of thieves writing to streets in Lagos saying, prepare, we are coming. This is how bad it was. A lawless place in some parts of Lagos. Today, you don't hear that. Some of these people that would be thieves were organized into some of the touts that you see collecting money from some of the tricycles, the agberos, the this, that, the other. Is it an ideal situation? No. What I believe has happened is that the Lagos state government has taken a terrible situation and made it bad. Terrible is the worst case. The next thing after terrible is anarchy. So they've shifted Lagos away from anarchy. Okay? They've shifted Lagos away from terrible and brought it forward to a more manageable place called bad. So while it is not a good situation, it could have been worse. They had a huge youthful problem in this city. These kids were not being educated. They were not being employed. They constituted criminal gangs. They constituted crime in the city. So what the government did is, all right, we'll look the other way while they form their little co-ops and the NURTs and this, that, the other, collecting monies here and there. Because if they don't have a way to eat, because the states cannot look after them, they will go back to breaking into your homes and taking your possessions. So again, a terrible situation was shifted from being terrible to being bad. The political thuggery you see is no different. And in fact, there's a ticking time bomb in the northeastern part of the country. I warned about this 4 years ago, and I said, look, there are children who were born in this state of insecurity. They are becoming teenagers now. By the time they hit 16 to 20 years old, all they have known is violence and war. They will come after us. They will come after us if we don't look to them now, because we are so engrossed in kidnapper, this, that, the other. We forget that there's a great there's an entire generation growing up in certain parts of this country that have only known violence. When they become adults and we can't give them jobs, they're going to come for us. So the youth, be it political thuggery or kidnapper or this, that, the other, it is a youthful problem. The largest demographic in this country are youth. What are we doing about them? And it breaks my heart when I hear how much we're spending in tertiary institutions, TED fund, and so on. Look, where you want to invest is in your basic and secondary education. In some countries, developed countries, by the time you have written your GCSEs or you have done your high school, that's your secondary school, you should have been given enough knowledge to become a meaningful contributor to your society. University education shouldn't be the norm. It should be optional. If you want to professionalize, then you can do so. But as soon as you've done your GCEs, you're meant to have had enough knowledge to go out and become even an employer of labor. But look at the secondary education in the country. Look at where we are. Some time ago, a group of half-wits got together and decided, let us take history and chuck it inside the bush. What are we doing? Seriously, these are the challenges before us. So again, that electoral scenario you have painted is a symptom of a big problem with Nigeria's youth. Nigeria's unengaged youth. We have to do something about them. The low-hanging fruits are the construction industry and agriculture. These are massive employers of labor. But then again, when you look at these areas, especially one of them, agriculture, you're toying with insecurity. So you need a decisive measure to thump out insecurity. It takes a lot of political will to do that. Construction industry, the same thing. These are huge employers of labor. When people are able to industrialize and we get young people after your secondary school, you go into a factory, you work in a factory for 5 years. At the end of that, you're on your housing ladder because National Housing Fund is working well. So you own your house that you're paying for, your own children are going to good schools. You have access to healthcare. Lagos has 4% health insurance coverage as of 2023 when I checked. This is too low for a country, a town of 24 million people. You're not meant to be able to pay for health from your pockets. It's no. So when we get all these things right and we start setting them right, some of these challenges will start to self and auto-correct. But let's stop focusing on the symptoms and go to the root of the problem. This is where it must begin. Okay.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'd like to also add a little bit.
Yes, Edie.
What's most shocking when people say the vote of a professor and it's easier to galvanize others? Let's be honest. The Electoral College is offering you. Let me use a very simple system, and this is the microcosm of our society. Electoral College said we are giving you free classes. You just need to spend your data. It's not costing you anything. We're going to bring people that you can't even imagine you see. You are 700 and something on the WhatsApp group, yet the class cannot even produce 250 people in a class at a time. What does that tell you? The error in African behavior to politics is our non-participation. Are you in a party? No. Are you voting? No. But you want good governance. I don't understand. If you have no investment in good in the process, why do you want a good product? I don't understand. Have you sat down, just opened in your kitchen, just put palm oil, onion, and rice, and just looked at it, then gone out and said that's the recipe for jollof rice? Then come back and make jollof rice sitting down there, or by putting them into the same package. You need to participate so that the process can produce a product. So for now, we still produce politicians like we have rice, raw rice, onion, and we don't demand. When somebody comes to say, I'm running, the first thing you say, I'm following him. Why? He's young. Following him. Why? He knows me. I'm following him. Why? That's your, even the intelligentsia, let's be honest. If I ask everybody and can take on here, who did you support? If you tell me on your mandate, I'll say, okay, what was on your mandate's health policy? You do not know. What was his educational policy? You don't know. Why did you vote for him? Because it was our turn. If I ask you, why are you supporting serial presidential runner? You say he has been vice president before. How does that tend for him to be president? If you are following Gregory, Gregory will say, go and check. Go and check where. Do you understand? Check where. Everything of it, check. No infant mortality, no exact basis on IT or any move to maybe deal with how it's going to operate in a federating unit. No conversations. If we check Mr. Red Cap, you start talking about scholarship. We don't know anything about his health policy. So we, even as citizens, do not demand that of politicians. What we demand of politicians is strictly money and etc. So since we do not demand anything but money, I don't think the intelligentsia, that's the professors that are cut out of the money. They are the ones that work for INEC. And they are the ones that do resident electoral commissioners. They are the ones that print posters for politicians. Intelligentsia are the ones that carry money between the grassroots and the politicians. Do you think Tinubu goes into, or Atiku or Peter Obi goes into somewhere? They don't now. Who do you think is committing? The greatest crime is committed by Nigeria's middle class. If you do not know that yet, then we have a very long way to go, because they are the ones who don't vote. They are the ones that they are the conduits between politicians and this thing. They are the ones that say, no, give them 2 kg of SEMO. They've chopped the rest of the money. Maybe politician release 100 million. And I know this. I've walked around the elections. Politician release 100 million. The people will be getting 1 cup of mudu of rice, 1 small drop of palm oil. Let me not extend this class, but basically, what you mentioned, if we cannot legally say in a democracy everybody has the same constitutional rights, then say maybe a professor's vote is better than a shoemaker's vote. No, that will never happen. That's not a democracy. So anyway, hope I've been able to add to that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, ED. Mariam?
All right. Rabiat. That's it on mute.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Camry. Thank you very much. So I would like to say that regarding I would like to say thank you for mentioning the argument regarding that. In my community, several times we see even the policemen, the force, most especially
Rabias,
when
you're
it is
muffled. You're muffled. You're covering your speaker, your microphone.
okay. Let me say in my community regarding the
Rabias, sorry to stop you again. You have moved away from your microphone.
Then
Have you moved away?
we
You're
want
not
the
clear.
government to do better. Then the people, the government will not come down here to come and monitor maybe let me say protect security and stuff. Those that were supposed to, they had the one exhausting from the drivers, from the passengers. And we keep saying that maybe the transport is expensive. And I do tell people that if the transport is expensive, they are going to add all these expenses because every time if a policeman is at the junction now, before the drivers come back, another set of policemen will have been there. And it has become norms for that aspect. And as well for the social media, I think the social media needs to be regulated because of money. Let me say monetization. A lot of people and they won't even verify the information. They will just have to put it there because of the click, the likes, and the share. So I really suggest and I supported that the social media to be regulated as well. And for the I was opportune to be the one of the electoral and should I say electoral for the chairmanship. We were literally begging people to come and vote. It got to a certain time. Some of the parties, both the APC, most especially the APC and the PDP, those that have voted, they went to go and bring them back to come and vote so that their numbers they are going to increase. And the people passing by, some people will say, I can never vote. If I vote, well, do you want to give me money? What did I want to do? They should say maybe people are still in that, or they are not just interested. And if they don't vote, I don't think there's no any magic that is going to happen. Like PG used to say, Mr. Kulelawan used to say, is the election that is voted, that is what they are going to use. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rabia.
All right.
All right, one last one, Mariam.
Okay, let's take one last one. Luadam Larry, wax it on mute.
Finally, it is my turn. Thank you. So, I'm going to be very, very quick, sir. It's some years ago, there was a particular farmer who went to his farm. I think this happened in Adamawa State. He went to his farm, he experienced an assailant. I'm trying not to use any specific sort of, so they said we shouldn't use stereotypes. Apparently, maybe it was a header or something. This assailant attacked him on the farm. The man defended himself. Can you hear me, please?
I can hear you. He ended up killing the assailant and he was sentenced to jail or something. Is that the case?
Yes, and they were saying something like they were even going to hang him.
Yes.
For quite a while, everybody just kept quiet about it. So we've heard all sorts of. I want to get your not just your opinion, actually. What from your investigation? What really happened, and why did we have that sort of situation?
All right. I think I will call it personally a miscarriage of justice because this is clearly a case of self-defense. He was where he was supposed to be. The assailants came to meet him where he was supposed to be on his farm. They had their, disagreements. He was attacked. And in fact, I think it's the assailant's weapon. He dispossessed the assailant of the weapon and kills the assailant. So I'm not too familiar with the entire details of the prosecution's case. That's the state's case, where they say, well, if you had the knife, again, this is self-defense. I don't know, maybe the other person had another weapon, but you come to attack me, I killed you for trying to attack me is self-defense. I didn't go out to to deliberately seek you out to kill. So that's why I call it a miscarriage of justice. The matter is being appealed. It's my ethnic group, the person in question. As the matter is being appealed, I need to get some updates on what happens. I know the case very well. That's why I just called it miscarriage of justice. I call it self-defense.
So if I may, sir, forgive me for adding one more. It's a follow-up to this question.
Yes.
To what extent do you think this sort of what you call miscarriage of justice, this sort of process, to what extent do you think it has? What kind of effect does it have?
The optics
Yes,
sound
and what kind
good.
of but like what kind of effect does it have now on other farmers who go? You've just talked about how the government has to be more decisive concerning insecurity on farms and agriculture. So to what extent do you think this now affects other people, not just up there in the north, but down here in the south, who are experiencing this same kind of thing? Like from a
The
media, from
optics,
the
the
journalistic
optics are not good.
point of view.
Yeah, the optics are not good. It's very discouraging to farmers because a farmer will be left to think, oh well, I'm not protected. If I go out and somebody comes to attack me, it means I'm dead, because if I attack the person and something happens, I'll be blamed. Or if the person succeeds, I'll be killed. So it's not good for the farmers because it will discourage them. Secondly, regarding the attacker's ethnicity, the narrative would be they are favored, they are protected, and they can do no wrong. This is the general narrative that people will run with. That's why I say I hate identity politics. When President Buhari came to office, what happened, just like when every other president came to office, any of his predecessors, what happened is some people identify with him and say, we are now in charge. The same thing happened when President Yar'Adua of blessed memory came to office, President Johnson as well, President Olusegun Obasanjo. We claim them, we say, oh, we are now in charge. How that narrative is managed by leadership at the top is what I'm not happy with, because the leaders should be able to stand up and say, I used to say this on my radio program in Abuja. Anyone that listens to me then will tell you, I would end my program by inciting and provoking ethnic identity. I would say, I am a Nigerian, my tribe. I wouldn't say ethnic group. I'm a Nigerian, my tribe comes second. It got to the stage, my ethnic group summoned me and said, look, are you saying we don't matter? I said, no, listen to what I say very carefully. I'm a Nigerian. My identity means I'm first of all a Nigerian before I am just your son. I can't just be your son. There's a country that must exist, first of all, that then qualifies all our ethnic groups to exist in. I'm trying to make people understand your national identity is how the rest of the world negotiates with you, not your ethnic identity. You leave the shores of this country, they're looking at you based on your national colors, not your ethnic colors. So that was me provoking that conversation. So they said, well, does it mean you don't love us? I said, no, listen to me. Look, it's like a parent will have 3 children. A parent will love all 3 of their children. They might prefer one child when it comes to one thing, another child when it comes to another thing. Doesn't mean they don't love child 2 and 3 because they prefer child 1 when it comes to watching football matches. No. So, as I said, ethnic identity, every layer has its place, and we need to order it properly. That's why I started by saying we have, first of all, our biological identities, and then it goes down from there. Because whether you're this tribe or that tribe or whatever, you're a human being first. When somebody looks at you, they look at a human being before they guess what continent you're from, what country you're from, what part of the country you're from, all these things, they're secondary. When you come across another human being, they first identify this is a person, not a rat, not a dog, not an elephant. So if we don't get it orderly in its right place, there will be conflict. So this narrative of one ethnic group is favored. Somebody said something once. It said, oh, Mr. Camry, Igbos are marginalized. This was in 2015. And I said, everybody's marginalized. That's my take. Everybody's marginalized. We're all marginalizing ourselves in our tiny little marginalization spaces. This is what it is. But if you are talking about the presidency of the country, my opinion then was that the Southeast has been excluded from holding the highest office in the land. And I said, if you compel me to speculate, I will say, well, I believe we're still punishing them for 1966. It's a conversation we don't want to have. The family has a problem. The family doesn't want to talk about the problem. So some members of the family feel they are being left out and being shortchanged. And you think you can have a peaceful house? No, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. You don't want to let me go. You want me to stay, but you don't want to listen to me. Does that make sense? So we need to have a conversation. South Africa is known to be very good at talk radio. I think one of the best talk radio stations in the world, 702, is South African. The reason South Africans are good in talk radio is because they had a serious problem on their hands with apartheid. With the end of apartheid, they now realized, look, here we are, we have to coexist and live together. The only way we can do this is to have a conversation. The first thing they did, Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and they went through that process. If not, their situation would be much worse today. Has it tackled racism? No, but it has brought it to manageable levels where they can have a country. So identity politics, no, it's not it. I don't know how to be politically correct, unfortunately. But there you are. There you have it. Something happened in our history. There are other countries that celebrate their civil war. They mark it to remind themselves once upon a time Brother was fighting brother. Let us remember how we got there. Let us look out for any signs for tomorrow and make sure we never go there. But what did we do? Again, a group of half-wits got together in one room and decided, the best way we can help Nigeria is to carry history and put it inside the bush. Come on. I hope I've answered your question. Mariam, back to you.
All right. Yes, we have one more hand up, so I think we should take that.
All right, last one.
All right. Manasseh, I've asked you to unmute.
Good evening once again.
Welcome back, Manasseh.
Thank you, sir. I think it's a form of a question, a sort of. At the beginning of the class, you spoke about how somebody reported a lady who was butchered and some other places, how they do it vividly.
Yes.
Now, I want to ask, such persons that gives this kind of report, is it right for us to look at them as being politically motivated or ethnically or religiously motivated? Because automatically, to my understanding, it looks as if such report is being put in a public space in order to incite certain group of people or to incite the people against the government. So what are those people? How do we portray them? Thank you, sir.
Well, I think that's a question each and every one of us will have to answer for ourselves when we come across information like this. It's not for me to tell you who or what a person is. But again, I will say this, you need to question the information you receive. As a journalist, when I'm reporting on something, I know why I'm reporting on it. If I don't know why, then I've got a problem. And for you to describe in graphic detail violence that is meted out against another person, then you have to question what a person's motive is. When you describe the nature of the violence in graphic detail, the person's motive must be questioned, in my opinion. Okay, so it's a question that we each individually have to answer. It's, that's how it goes, Manasseh. I hope that answers your question, even though I didn't give you an answer, yes or no. It's not a yes or no question, is it? It's a situation thing for us to manage and handle in our own regards. All right, thank you, Mariam.
All right, thank you very much for the justice you've done to this topic. It's always an honor listening to you again every time. It's always beautiful. Thank you very much. We really appreciate you. I've learned, unlearned, and relearned, yeah. So really appreciate you. And I'm pretty sure every student here are really appreciative. Thank you very much once again. Really appreciate you. Have a wonderful night. Enjoy the rest of your night and have a good week ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So with that, we've come to the end of the class. I see everybody next weekend. Enjoy. Bye-bye.